Ooh, we're live. There we go. That's why it wasn't letting you on there, because it did
Hey,
take you off as soon as I hit live. Whew.
love it. All right. I don't know. On my screen, it still says I'm offline. I have no idea why.
Does it? You can't see me still?
I can see you. I can't see me,
Oh, you can't see me. How
which
buggy.
is
Let me check the
so odd.
Facebook real quick and see if it's like broadcasting right.
Yeah. As long as it's broadcasting right, we're good.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So
Well, who knows?
side by side on the stream.
I'm all right.
Probably user error.
Probably me. I'm the user error.
Oh man. So we wanted to have a conversation, me and you, about this kingdom. What is it called? Kingdom Accountability Project.
Yeah. I have
LLC.
so many thoughts about the nature of that credibility.
Yeah, that was my big concern. So, for people who don't know, I guess it was a handful of days ago. I didn't see it till yesterday, but I think the post was like 5 days old or something like that. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
find it here.
Yeah. Patricia King posted it about 5 days ago. And we can pull up that post actually and just,
Yeah, I was trying to see the screen share on this like EV Muck stuff isn't the. Let's see if I can get it to work right or not. Here we go. Found it. Let's see if I can. Also, I gotta stop that screen share and then try this. Bada bing, bada boom. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. Can you see that?
yep.
Sweet. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. Well, we don't want that. We want the post. I'm giving everybody a fit. There we go. So here was her post that she made a handful of days ago. The Kingdom Accountability document is now online. Dear friends, I'm excited to share that the Kingdom Accountability Project document is now officially online. I truly believe it carries great value for the body of Christ, will serve as a helpful tool for strengthening integrity, transparency, and love within ministry leadership. If you haven't had a chance to read or endorse it, I warmly invite you to do so below. And they have the link to the PDF document that I'll pull up here in a minute. They have a link to the change.org petition to endorse it, and they're encouraging people to share it. Last I checked it, I guess I can pull it up here if it doesn't do anything weird. Let's see, share this tab instead. Did that switch it over? Yes, it did. So they got 52 signatures, so it looks like that there's been
52.
since I looked at it yesterday.
That's not very many.
No, it's not.
Brings
And-
me deep joy. And with reason that we will get into. It is not just that, I've been accused of being critical of the institution. And I am more critical of institutions because they have a responsibility to people. But it's not just, I actually supported the final pastoral recommendation team report. I actually found that to be done really well. And so I am not just like wholesale rejecting it. I did read through a significant portion of it, but it's long, so we're just going to jump in.
Yeah, and I think setting that framework is helpful too for people, especially if they're unfamiliar with us, is that just blatantly, I won't speak for you, but I'll let you agree with a head nod if you want, but I have zero trust in Christian institutions and Christian leaders. And so whenever approaching something like this, I'm always looking to see efforts to rebuild trust. And in my initial scan, I guess, of the document, I didn't see a lot of that. And so with Susan and I were very close to the IHOP KC allegations towards Mike Bickle that blew up almost 2 years ago now. And so we get to see the performative moves that happened over and over and over again, what some people may even classify as propaganda. And I'm very cautious whenever like a document like this is released, especially with the people who are involved, because it's those same circles of the people who have been in the headlines for abuse for the past 2 years.
Yeah, and so even like, just going to the first page to give you an example. One of the things that that IHOP KC did over and over again was they would bring in experts, or they would do an internal investigation, and then they would see, hey, we're innocent, we did fine, or or take partial responsibility. And what they often did was, we would find out, that the law firm they used, was known for defending the institution
Yes.
at the expense of victims. It was all about decreasing their own liability. Or they would have, incredible institutional bias if they selected pastors. They would not be experts in sexual abuse, in trauma, in any of the subjects that they're ruling on. And so without actually being an expert, it's that's my initial complaint with this. Page 1, I didn't have to go very far to find red flags. You already have Mark and Nikki Pfeiffer, who, in my understanding, rejected the findings of a third-party investigation into Dr. Brown.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about this. So like I kind of deep dove a bunch of these people this morning, just trying to figure out who they were. Which Mark and Nikki, the only reason I know their name is because of their proximity to the Dr. Brown stuff. Do you know anything else about them? I know that they're pastors or something like that.
I thought they were on the initial pastoral recommendation report.
I think so.
Which, and I can double check that, but why, part of the reason that's odd is that there are several portions of this document that go directly against principles that are outlined in the pastoral recommendation report made by that team. And as part of the pastoral recommendation report, Mark he released a joint statement saying, we will abide by the opinion of experts. We are not experts. So for him to say that and then turn around and create a document like this, where from what I can see, looking at the executive committee, I don't see a single respected expert of.
Yeah. There are. So what's striking is there are no mental health professionals, or even, I would say, anybody in like an advocacy type role,
Right.
Out of any of these leaders. But what there is filtered in here, and I'll have to remember which ones specifically they are. Oh yeah, that's one is when we were talking about this. So there's 2 attorneys that were involved with this.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the things. So right under the contributing authors, the next to last name there, David Englehart, is a pastor of King's Church, I believe, in Manhattan. He's the lead pastor there and planted that church in 2018. But he is an attorney and is a practicing lawyer, and he is a part of the Turning Point USA board and joined that in 2020.
And what kind, do we know what kind of law he practices?
I didn't deep dive it. I didn't. I know that he graduated from Regent. Is the one thing that I did see. And then there was one other attorney, and I can't remember who it was. And there was also, which I thought was interesting, there was 2 economists that were included in this.
So David works with, he is an institutional lawyer. So he works with a focus on
Safeguarding institutions.
I mean, it looks like it. Business litigation.
Institution is what I mean.
Yeah. It looks like it says David works with businesses and nonprofits. And given more time, I would have loved to kind of like, look into it a little further. But yeah, I see him here, and it says David works with businesses and nonprofits in the area of outside general counsel with a focus on new media and entertainment, while at times handling complex civil litigation. I would love to know what kind of civil litigation it was, and if it was ever defending an institution against claims of sexual abuse. I would love to know that. And that's, yeah. that is the first red flag. And the thing that we've learned over and over again is look at people's connections. So and that doesn't mean you have to throw the whole thing out. People can change. People can be involved with things that were unwise. You look at the members of the advocate group. I mean, they were all involved with IHOP, but a lot of them chose to learn and grow and, challenge their own.
And hardly any of them are still perfect, but it's the fact that they put forth the effort and show humility.
It was the humility of getting outside counsel of clergy abuse experts and then repeatedly deferring to it and being able to listen to the feedback of victims and survivors who were not like them.
Yeah.
Did they always agree? No, but there's a huge gulf between that behavior and the behavior I see among a lot of these people. So, you
like
have
Dan Juster with once
Oh,
the
man.
ERT was released, which he's on the contributing authors there, he's the third name down there, Daniel Juster. So he is known for his biblical due process book, I think, and he heads Tikkun
Yes.
International.
I think he's Tikkun US. Well, I don't know.
It might be. It may
He's somewhere up there. He's
somewhere with Tikkun, a leader. But he was on pretty much all the teams, I think, that were involved with the IHOP KC stuff from Tikkun, correct?
He was removed. So
that's right.
he was going to oversee the
Direct one.
yeah. So he was going to oversee the process, and in overseeing that process, he broke a promise to survivors, which was to first submit things to Rachel Denhollander. Rachel Denhollander, if you don't know, she is a clergy sexual abuse lawyer. She's
And survivor.
And very well respected. And she was willing to work with them to establish something that addressed things theologically, because she is a Christian. And she's worked with other bodies. She's working with, I believe, the Presbyterian Church. She advocated for abuse survivors, Southern Baptist abuse survivors. So incredibly well respected, and still a Christian. Really believes that we need to be approaching things, cohesively. So should be right up their alley. And Tikkun had agreed to submit their pastoral recommendation report to her and have her, work with her consultatively. And
there was some
released it without that
as well that were supposed to be involved, right?
Yes, yeah, there were, and there was some disagreement about the experts. So Dan Juster released it without notifying her, did not send it to her, and then released it, and it was a massive betrayal. And so, and he has not really addressed that. And then apparently just went on to release his own accountability, project with a bunch of ministers and absolutely no oversight from people who understand.
Yeah.
But then it's not victim centric. So anyway.
And the one unifying, I guess, shared characteristic between all of these people, or the majority of them, would be that they are in the New Apostolic Reformation circles, but more specifically, what I didn't realize that this was the acronym for it, but until today, but the ICAL is what it is.
Yeah, and I have a lot of issues with ICAL, the International Coalition of Apostolic Leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
John Kelly, the executive director on here. So he was the one. So I think most people, if they're familiar with NAR, they know the name C. Peter Wagner.
Yeah.
I didn't know John Kelly's name until today. I didn't realize that he was C. Peter Wagner's successor. And
I did not realize that, no.
He was actually, if you look on his Wikipedia, if that's accurate, he is actually listed as the founder of ICAL and not C. Peter Wagner.
Wow.
Which is very curious, especially when men have, in this movement, when men have positions of great power and they're not well known, that always is like why is that?
I have a lot of questions too about, there's a lot of names here where I'm like,
Patricia King, media personality. Most people probably know her from her
she's
TV shows and
she's
stuff.
considered an apostle, right?
I think at least like a prophet type
Yeah,
adjacent
yeah.
apostle kind of thing. Dan Juster, we just talked about, which
But
I don't.
Jeremiah Johnson has well-established, credible accusations of spiritual abuse, of
Yeah.
plagiarism, and then we saw him, and you can go to his page, but he repeatedly spoke out against victims of sexual abuse, called them accusers, demonic accusers, Jezebels, the Jezebel spirit. And he would release these prophecies. He would happen to have these dreams and prophetic unctions
Did they like horses?
in concert with, um, in concert with, key moments. He'd go on Daystar and then magically have a prophetic word about false accusations happening, and it's really concerning. All of these names are so concerning to me. I think Steve Propachak, I believe he was also on the PRT.
I don't recognize Steve.
What?
Which one was it? Steve.
I know I've heard that name, Steve Propachak.
I don't know.
Propachak. I will look that one up real quick. But
Yeah, and then just like going down through here, who's who, just a quick hits like Joseph Matera. He was the one, which I've not dug into that situation at all with the Trump prophets and the whole Jan 6 stuff and all that surrounding that, and all the false prophecies. But Matera apparently was the one who organized the statement telling those people to repent, which, I mean, if we're trying to be unbiased, like, we'll mark that up for whatever it is, whether it's performative or not, I don't know. Josh Clark, I didn't know that name, but that is Randy Clark's son.
Okay.
And he works for Randy at, what is that called? Global Awakening, I think is what their ministry's called, somewhere in Pennsylvania is where they are. This guy here, I had no idea. He's I guess the apostle of Nigeria type thing with ICAL. So he runs INCAL, Nigerian Council of Apostolic Leaders.
yeah,
So I think that this is the guy who is retired military officer. Let me see if I can pull up my notes here so I don't say something wrong. He is the founder of Warrior Spirit Ministries, and he facilitates the Christian Men's Ministry Leadership Coalition. And his most well-known topics are him writing about biblical citizenship and America's founding. And he is a close friend of John Kelly. Trying to see if there's any other interesting ones worth mentioning. There's a lot of Brazilian pastors, which I thought was very interesting as well.
the NER is really big in Brazil. Tikkun is in Brazil, for example. Yeah, it looks like Steve does appear in both documents. So I think it's really interesting because this is almost a reversal. I mean, it is a reversal for the people who appear in both.
Yeah.
I'm just going to double check because I feel like my I'm using a search and I think I'm afraid it's lying to me. No, Steve is on both.
Okay.
Steve is on both. Senior member of Dove International Network. I'm not sure if that's related to the music network, but
I don't know either.
yeah, but now he is a marriage and family counselor, but it's interesting because it does not.
Do you see his name here? I'm having trouble finding his name.
Dr. Steve Propachak under initial endorsers. So I think it's interesting that he's endorsing it after appearing on the pastoral recommendation team, because within the pastoral recommendation team, it literally says, I'm trying to find statement of scope. It essentially says,
oh, there. I'm blind as a bat. I was like sitting here trying to find it.
yeah. I'll see if I can find it because I don't want to hold this up, but Right here, we
all yours.
affirm the wisdom of seeking independent investigators and investigations. Pastors are rarely experts in evidentiary matters, credibility assessments, and creating sound and safe processes that allow survivors to speak freely and all evidence to come forward. We affirm that, especially in cases related to sexual assault or other potentially abusive or criminal behavior, that it is wise and good to rely on individuals within the body of Christ who do possess these giftings and skills to ascertain and weigh evidence, as well as the common grace with which secular experts may be imbued as facts are established. We likewise affirm that seeking input and assistance from outside experts will help in reaching the biblical goal of judgments made without partiality. And then it talks about, it just talks about all of it. And what is frustrating to me is that one member refused, Dan Juster, to participate in a process that actually called outside, he tried to circuit that process. And then two of the people whose names are here, Mark Pfeiffer and Steve Prokopchak. I feel so bad butchering his name.
I'm just going to let you try it. I'm not even going to try it.
Prokopchak. I'm going to go with Prokopchak. Both of them affirmed the wisdom and that the fact that pastors are not experts in evidentiary matters. They're not experts in creating processes in which both sides are free to come forward, and then had the audacity, the absolute arrogance, after failing once and having to apologize, to then put out a document that actually does not follow the wisdom of experts that were consulted.
Yeah.
That is.
Well, and I think that's one of our broader critiques, I think, of the whole movement, at least one of mine, is I'm trying to figure out how to word this kindly.
Audacity. Arrogance.
That scripture that, like, the Bible alone. Ooh, I'm going to get in trouble saying that. The Bible alone. So I have to say that, like, I still highly value scripture. I still enjoy portions of the Bible, I will say. I do not hold to an inerrant view anymore. But I think that they put the Bible in a place to where science cannot, or professional opinion cannot validate an opinion that differs from whatever the Bible is prescribing, even if that was written thousands of years ago in a totally different culture.
And see, I would phrase it differently, because I think there's a place, even in inerrancy, where you can acknowledge, like, scripture can be inerrant, but your application of scripture in this scenario is not, like, to believe that your application is correct in every scenario is like, scripture was not created explicitly for governance.
Yeah.
It says right in it, it's beneficial for teaching, it's beneficial for encouragement, it's beneficial for those things.
Yeah.
But it is not a roadmap for governance. It's not we don't.
And that's what
we don't design buildings.
Yes.
Based on, like.
I mean, somebody rebuilt the ark, so.
Well, yeah.
But the critique is to just be blunt and frank about it, is of Dan Juster's. I haven't dove deep into that section, but there's a section labeled biblical jurisprudence, and it's all taken from Old Testament passages about rituals and processes and courts and trials. And I don't think that the powers that be, the divine, God, whoever, whatever, however you define that, I don't think that the intention of including that in the book was to arbitrate cases of clergy sexual abuse in the year 2025.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. But
I think that's valid. All right.
Should we jump into it? I think.
Yeah. Do we want to read through the word from the authors and contributors, or do we want to jump straight into the actual document?
I think like these little like 3 bullet points here are kind of because I don't want to just crap on all this because like a lot of this is steps in the right direction. Is that a good way of saying it?
I think I struggle with it because I feel like it is, well, yeah, I think there are some sections that are probably helpful, but I think that
And this will hit audiences that would not normally encounter these types of ideas and language, I
I
believe.
think I think that again, my issue is that it is a dangerous document in that there is a significant amount that can be weaponized. So it isn't that there's nothing good in it.
Yes.
It's that the way that it's written and the lack of credible professional opinion that you know it, that it leaves these huge areas that are going to be exploited against victims. Um, and we can jump into that. But I will say the 3 bullet points they have here, accountability is not an enemy of grace. It is its ally. I can agree with that right on its face.
Yeah.
Justice is not opposed to mercy. It is its path. I can 100% agree with that. Transparency is not a threat to leadership. It is its strength. I can 100% affirm that. So I can
Yeah.
straight out the gate say, this is fine. That
Yeah.
is fine. That is
The
true.
only one that makes me pause, and it's just because of my own experience, is the justice is not opposed to mercy thing. Because with our eschatology that we believed at IHOP KC, we saw wrath and judgment and saw significant harm committed by the divine figure and called it mercy. And like,
Well,
it's, you know,
and that is where we have to define terms well.
yeah,
So, like when they talked about repentance in the PRT, they laid out one of the great strengths of the pastoral. I cannot believe this is coming out of my mouth. But one of the great strengths of the pastoral recommendation team's report was its definition of repentance and just its definitions in general. Um,
I
they
have
were
that handy.
so incredibly clear, like repentance. It is noted that in Scripture, repentance entails, at a minimum, the following aspects: confession, speaking the full truth about what was done; turning away, the full abandoning of sin; restitution, concrete measures to restore the harm that was incurred; demonstrable fruit. But then it goes on later to actually articulate what fruit looks like and what restitution looks like and what turning away looks like. And it gives you metrics to actually evaluate that.
Yeah. And I don't think, I mean, you can speak to your own experience. I don't think I've ever seen, without legal involvement, I don't think I've ever seen a church give restitution to a victim.
No, I have not. No, no, not without legal involvement.
Yeah.
Not until there was significant public outcry
Yeah. It's usually public pressure.
and the threat, plus the like. Without both of those, I've never seen it.
Yeah. Which I think is going to be our biggest critique of this document is the way that it is used to try to control social media. I think
Yeah.
is going to be
Yeah.
a piece of that. So then it's just it gives you a table of contents. And so, I mean, if you've never seen a document like this, it may be kind of weird, but I kind of appreciate that they're like going into this kind of detail, that they're going in and giving definitions of all these things.
Yeah, I think that's
They
great.
actually launch into the conversation. Like, I respect that. And even giving which we'll hit right here, the purpose and scope and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that there was much in this foreword. There might have been.
I think it does a good job talking about a lot of these things. I think it does a bit much. It's trying to address all forms of leadership failure, toxic leadership, spiritual abuse, sexual misconduct, heresy,
The
financial
heresy.
impropriety.
Yes.
Yeah, and heresy and financial impropriety. It's like these are hugely different.
Absolutely, Christina. We'll leave this up.
Yeah, I think those are hugely different categories. And so, like heresy, that's going to vary greatly between, someone who ascribes to the NAR to Presbyterian. Like a Presbyterian is gonna tell you that half of like the Seven Mountain Mandate is heresy. Um, and so that one I have a hard time with because I'm like,
Find where right here it is. Yeah, and so there's some of it that's in having personal issues with it is different than having a issue with it about just the well-being of all the people that it affects. Like I'm
well,
willing to set aside my personal differences on things like this and go, okay, but how does this impact the audience? Like I can have my own opinion. So like I look at some of these heresies and I'm like, I kind of half believe some of them.
all right. So now I have to jump into this, and here's why. I have to jump further down. So here's why it concerns me that we have heresy included. Heresy has nothing to do with holding leaders accountable for sexual abuse.
Behavior versus beliefs.
Yeah. So, and the reason it matters is we can talk all day about whether Mike Bickle, for example, had heretical beliefs. I believe he did. You don't have to believe he did, but I believe he did. However, that has nothing to do with the validity of the claims against him, both in terms of him, but also in terms of someone bringing an allegation of sexual abuse. So when we talk about Mike Bickle, some of the people who were bringing allegations in IHOP, some of them had different beliefs about gender identity, sexual identity. Some of them had different beliefs about God. Some of them, I'm sure.
Well,
I First of all, IHOP is Gnostic as hell. But that's I'm like, you guys are all Gnostics. Get out of here. I was a Gnostic. I say that as someone who kind of sometimes still acts like. So, but that is really difficult for me to look at because a lot of yeah.
and I feel
Like,
like the last four are targeted at us and our friends. That's
yeah, and the reason that matters, and see, I'm already jumping around, but further down in the document, it goes through ways to assess the credibility of allegations.
oh, does it? I missed that part.
Yes, so there is a section, and let me scroll up in my notes.
Right.
But because whenever you're looking at why when something that's included, you need to ask yourself, what's the purpose of this being included, right? And who does this serve?
Yeah.
So who does it serve when we are talking about church accountability, particularly in light of sexual abuse? Who does it serve? And financial abuse, who does it serve to include allegations of heresy? Now, if you want to address allegations of heresy, with minister A, B, C, D, that's fine. And you would want a panel of theologians within your denomination to assess that, and that would be absolutely appropriate. But that's not a matter of abuse.
Yes.
Bad theology
Yes.
is not abusive on its face. How it's enacted is abusive.
Yes.
Um,
And I don't think
not all bad theology is abusive. There's plenty of abusive bad theology, I guess.
I'm totally willing to be wrong on this, but I don't think that we see Jesus condemn or critique people necessarily or exclude people because of their beliefs. He critiques religious leaders at times for the burdens that they put on people and the standards that they are putting on them. They do not keep themselves. And he gets a lot into like spirit of the law kind of stuff, but I don't think
Yeah.
that we see him say, you believe X, Y, or Z, so therefore you are not of me. Like, I don't think we see that much. If
Yeah.
that-
And I want to, here's the section I want to point out, and it's quite a bit further down, is it a large document. But section 4.4 on toxic leadership. Before any accusations are considered credible, a careful and thorough investigation must be conducted that includes both the actions of the leader and the credibility and context of the accusations being made. And so, there's another one in section 7.2.6 on receiving accusations. Testimonies should be weighed carefully to determine a clear conflict of interest. Anyone with a conflict of interest, in other words, someone previously terminated by the accused, someone accused of unethical conduct themselves, or someone known to harbor bitterness. Okay, how are you quantifying someone known to harbor bitterness?
Yeah.
So those people should have their claims viewed with initial skepticism and subject to heightened scrutiny. And here's why that's a problem.
You can't define if somebody is bitter. I cannot say that, Susan, you are bitter with absolute certainty.
But let's say that I am. That would be, let's say that I am absolutely bitter about IHOP. I am. I have unforgiveness in my heart.
You are offended.
I am offended. I am offended. That is a natural response to abuse.
Yes, yes.
So it actually has nothing to do with the credibility of a claim, and making emotional responses that are natural responses to abuse and mistreatment and you know, any, like all the forms of harm that they might have experienced, linking that to credibility at any point in this document, even if it's just, oh, spiritual abuse. Because I don't remember if that's for all accusations or just the spiritual abuse or financial, whatever. But that's exactly what allows Sean Foyt to get away with. That is verbatim what Sean Foyt is saying about the financial allegations against him. These are bitter. So they are bitter.
Told former employees.
Disgruntled. They're leftists.
Yes.
You know, they're Marxists. They are. So these are
Antifa? Has Antifa made it into international circles yet?
Probably. You know, and now they're anti-God. And so that is used to cast doubt on that is they're anti-Foyt is what they are. Anti-Foyt. But you know, that's used to cast preemptive doubt on the credibility of claims. And that is inherently problematic. And so that already we have the biggest flag of red flags that you can have. And what's really frustrating is that they're quoting Diane Langberg within this, which gives it the appearance of credibility, but they're cherry picking her.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who might think that we're being like a little harsh or over the top with like these like what if kind of things, it's not a what if for us because we saw it firsthand. We saw whenever our friends stepped forward during the IHOP KC stuff and told their abuse story, and their credibility was questioned in public forums. And the reason their credibility was questioned is because other victims that came forward were conference speakers and other things. And that's not to slight them, but they were put into a different position, a different category of credibility just because they had visibility than somebody who was just a student or an intern or worked a little job here at IHOP KC and that kind of thing. And so like we've seen credibility weaponized time and time again.
Yes. It's a huge thing that's weaponized. And my real question here is when we're looking at the definitions.
I want to go back to the heresies too. And
well, when we're looking at the definitions, my question with this document is oh my gosh, I forgot about the social media portion. I need to just go back to that. But my issue with this document is that before we have gotten even into definitions of abuse, we are condemning public trial by social media. So they're like, we condemn clergy abuse and public trial by social media in the same breath, which immediately elevates those two things. That's sin leveling.
Yeah.
And it's also claiming that social media is sinful. And it says, you know, so they're like, while it can draw attention to serious concerns, it's not a reliable substitute for the careful, prayerful discernment entrusted to biblically guided eldership courts. No. Biblically prayerful discernment entrusted to biblically guided eldership courts is not a reliable substitute. They're not a court, and it is not a reliable substitute for trained abuse advocates, lawyers, and psychologists
who deal with this stuff. The difference is they deal with this stuff every day. A local church pastor might deal with this 3 or 4 times over the course of their career in the context of a local congregation. Like vast experience differences.
And any church leader is incentivized to prioritize the institution over the victim. They are
Yeah.
incentivized. So
Their
church
livelihood depends-
leadership, this is still an internal investigation. So this is an internal investigation with a veneer of, you know, it is third party and name only.
slapping the biblical name on it's what gives it credit.
It's Bible washing.
Bible washing. That's a great phrase. So in the purpose and scope, that was one of the things that whenever I was looking through to take notes of, that they clearly say this, that as far as the purpose, it also offers ethical guidelines to promote journalistic integrity among social media voices exposing scandals, along with a list of fundamental rights for those who have suffered abuse. And so,
Who are they to grant rights?
well, yeah, that's that. And I want to look at that. I want to see what they're saying is a list of fundamental rights of
Yeah.
victims. But the fact that nobody is asking them to give us ethical guidelines to promote journalistic integrity. If anything, like, well, I'm not even going to go there.
Well,
but
what is there?
there's a fake news cameo in here. They do say, like, calling things fake news. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah. And my frustration with this is, you know, I think that it is their opinion that public exposure is a necessary last resort, and they're saying, you know, that it can be an effort to bypass biblical due process. There's nothing in biblical due process that requires someone who has been abused to do anything other than cry out.
Yeah.
And I would challenge anyone, because Matthew 18 does not apply to issues of abuse. There is a requirement.
They do, to their credit, they do give some caveats around. I've not deep dove it yet, but around Matthew 18, they give a guideline for process, and they do say things like, if this is a situation of a senior leader abusing someone, you skip to step 3. Like that's growth for them.
Yeah, but it's still, you are still handling it internally.
Yeah.
And what I worry is that this creates hoops for victims to jump through, that are going to be applauded as due process, when in reality they are imposing rules on the conduct of victims before they have shown themselves able to police leaders.
Yeah.
And in this context, you know, the duty, like, we can't shift the focal point. We can't shift it from leadership. This is not, we should, it is not their role to hold potential victims accountable. It is their role to hold their leaders accountable, because
Yes.
those are the people who are, you know, okay, I'm gonna quote Rachel Denhollander, actually.
I
'Cause
thought you were going to go Karl Marx for a second. The way you,
We're going to get Marxist for a minute. Fiduciary law is clear. The fiduciary cannot claim the beneficiary's conduct reduces their duty. And so anything in this document about the conduct of people on social media, about the conduct of the congregation, of alleged victims, it doesn't belong in this document, because, you know, like a doctor can't say, my patient asked me to prescribe unnecessary medication. My patient, you know, the doctor is the one who is the person with the duty to protect, the duty to hold the boundary. They're the one with the ethical duty. The congregant, this is like, the shepherd is like, well, my sheep was acting kind of annoying. Like, it's apparent, like, I hold all of the responsibility. So if they want to claim authority, then they actually have to take on the responsibilities of that authority. And that means that they are the ones accountable, not the congregation, not the person harmed.
Yeah.
They are not accountable to do anything other than say, I was harmed in the way that they can.
And we may have mentioned this at the onset whenever we start talking today, but these people who've contributed to this, their worlds have been turned upside down over the past couple of years. They have been. I'm not saying I'm not saying this in a way that to empathize, because some of it I think is very self-serving. But we have seen investigation after investigation, scandal after scandal, and you can't help but feel that this is a grab for the reins to try to regain control. And that's what we've seen. That's why we talk about high control religion, and we talk about cults and different things like that from time to time, is because like their goal is to be able to control and have desired outcomes. And when things get out of their control, they publish a document and say, this is the way you need to behave because we didn't like how the past 2-3 years went. Like that's,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and my issue is here is they're coming into a process that they have really contributed nothing to. People begged Patricia King to speak up. People begged all
Yep.
of these people to speak up, and they did nothing but try to control victims, to try to control advocates, try to control people expressing concern. Why? Because public outcry looks bad.
Yes.
Public outcry exposes that they
Because
don't have a well-managed house and that they are not fit for leadership.
Yeah.
That's the issue. If they had immediately all engaged experts, that would be something else. But they have not. There is not a single reliable expert on any of this. Anyway, we're literally like one page in. Like I don't know how to get through this because
Yeah.
there's so many portions of it. There are moments that are good.
Yeah.
But
This
like
is
lack of accountability, the definition here, ignoring one's own unethical behavior and or failing to take responsibility. No, that's the definition of hypocrisy. This is on page 12 in their definitions of toxic leadership. So that's the definition of hypocrisy. A lack of accountability would actually be you don't answer to anyone and nobody can remove you to your station. So for example, if you hold an office, so we're not talking about, Brantley, you're on the internet saying things, right? Who's your accountability? All right, you don't hold an office that you can, you know what I'm saying? And so
I
there's,
don't have a whole lot of power. We got 300 people in a Facebook group that we can tag everyone with. And
and we don't, there's no fiduciary responsibility. So here's what there's fiduciary responsibility because there is a formal organization and money. And you are committing yourself to this person's care, right? Which is not the same as, I don't know, whatever,
listening to a podcast.
And so do you, is there personal responsibility involved? Yeah, but it's not the same as institutional accountability.
Yes.
And so there is hypocrisy, and then there is institutional accountability, and they're already failing in this definition, which shows me that this is just definitions that they came up with.
Yeah.
They're not relying, notice there's no footnotes sharing where they got those definitions. Whereas if you look in the PRT, there are extensive footnotes linking to
from.
Yeah, showing where it's from, quoting, this is from Diane Langberg, this is from Ezekiel 34, this is from whatever. There are links to mandatory reporting, which I don't know if I see this. Is mandatory reporting actually discussed in this?
There is, they talk about criminal offenses and reporting them to authorities. And I don't know what there's a whole criminal offense definition section in here too, but that's the delineation they're making, that if it's something not criminal, they handle it internally. I think is kind of how I perceived it. I could be wrong, but
I mean, if it's not,
can I hit on this before I forget here?
me too, yeah.
And then we'll scroll around. This was one of the first things that made me go, whenever I was reading this. Above all, the project underscores the church leadership is a sacred responsibility, not a right. I was like, oh, great. Like that sounds good. And that all discipline must be redemptive in nature, seeking not only justice, but healing of individuals. If we stopped there, like I'm halfway on board, then we add and institutions. Like Jesus did not call any of us to protect institutions. Like that's just not a thing. And so like
No, we don't need to heal institutions. And institutions are made of people and made to serve people. That's the whole man was not made for the Sabbath, but Sabbath for man.
yeah, the church is not a 501c3. The church is the people, and what they want to protect is the 501c3.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I know we're kind of all over the place
We
and
are.
we've barely scratched the surface, but it's hard because so much of this is linked. And I'm like new age syncretism.
This is 1.2 point.
Oh my Lord. I don't even know how to get through all this.
Here we go. This was an interesting one to me. This is a tinfoil hat, Brantley. This is what this does. Organizations maintaining true accountability within their ranks, including, this is weird, maintaining a list of their members who are in good moral standing within their organization.
I'm sorry, what? Hold on. Okay. So this is in a section called documental commitment.
This
So
is their
we
commitments.
jumped around for a minute, but this is under purpose and scope. And it says, we want this to be a manual for churches and ministries. It provides step-by-step investigative procedures, which they are not qualified to do, prioritizes victim care, which they are not qualified to do, mandates transparency, which they questionably do, and encourages churches to adopt preventative measures like background checks, whistleblower protections, and annual policy reviews as preventative measures. I want to know who set those up and designed them. Disciplinary actions are delineated based on the nature and severity of the offense, with the restoration pathways available for the genuinely repentant as defined by them. So documental commitment.
Can we get like the amplified version of this that just has Susan's footnotes after everything in parentheses?
A broad evangelical biblical orthodoxy that has been the consensus of doctrine and morals since the Reformation and throughout the centuries of evangelical Protestant history. I don't know that
That's a whole conversation on its own.
nobody on that first page would meet evangelical biblical orthodoxy. Not a single one.
You took that in a totally different way than what I thought you were going to. But
I love them, but centuries of evangelical Protestant history do not affirm any single one of those people's definition of the end times. There is a whole lot there. Some of those folks,
let's talk about the rise of Pentecostalism.
I can't. That is not. There is no, and I'm flexible. All right, I am pretty flexible when it comes to like,
Believe
hey,
whatever you want. Don't hurt anybody. Believe
yeah,
whatever you want.
I mean, there's stuff that I don't maybe buy into, but there is no universe that you could tell me that Jeremiah Johnson is Orthodox, or Patricia King is Orthodox, like absolutely. Cindy Jacobs, there is not biblical orthodoxy there. I am so sorry. You are decreeing and declaring to the air. Shay on. Not biblical orthodoxy. Absolutely not. So then it says organizations maintaining true accountability within their ranks, including maintaining a list of their members who are in good moral standing within their organization. So that is, yes, Brantley, that is very concerning. And here's why that's concerning. Again, because you have that section, and let me go find it.
It reminds me of whenever I was at IHOP. That was in my illegal downloading phase.
Abuses. Oh, sorry.
And I would get a hold of these like Alex Jones documentaries, like InfoWars, before I really knew who he was. And he would always talk about how they're making red and blue lists and they're putting names on lists and they're going to target you if you get on a list. That's what this reminds me of.
Yeah, and here's the problem. So you're gonna maintain a list. You're gonna report people, and again, we're not seeing maintaining a list of leaders who are in good moral standing.
Members.
Yeah, it's members, and that is again the issue with this document.
Credibility.
They are using credibility as a litmus test, and the issue is this is not about leadership accountability. We are accountability leveling. And Abuse is not determined by the actions or credibility or beliefs of the person without power. It is determined by the position of the person in power. The role creates the accountability. So I am not accountable for clergy sexual abuse. Only clergy are. I am not accountable for spiritual abuse. Clergy are.
But for the sake of argument, to help frame it for people, like your children, you would be responsible and held accountable for your children because there is a power dynamic that you are responsible for your children. And in that same manner, it's someone who's over an organization being responsible for those who are underneath them that they have power over.
If you mean, it depends on what you're saying. So I am responsible. See, I disagree with the idea that they would be responsible for the entirety of their behavior. They are responsible for the care of the people in there. That is like a misunderstanding the role.
Well, I'm not saying of the
pastors.
members. I'm saying of the leaders is what I was saying. Sorry, I got my wires crossed there.
Oh
So
yeah, no, they're
you are
responsible.
responsible if you abuse your children. Like that's something you would.
Oh,
be
that is yeah, yes,
said
exactly.
something
Yes.
mean to a pastor, a 4-letter word. That's not.
Yeah, and here's kind of my issue is what they're wanting to do is being like, well, okay, but if we're accountable for our behavior, you're accountable for yours. And my issue is the role of pastor is not a policing role. You are not the police.
It's not the
Now,
church law and order.
You you do have to, obviously, if there is like a congregant is perpetuating abuse, let's say there's a congregant, you have the responsibility to protect, right, the people in your congregation from that congregant. So like if there's someone who is attending who is
Their spouse is abusing them.
Yes, yes. So then you have a responsibility to care for the victim and protect them from the abuser and provide a safe space. Help them report to police, do what they, whatever.
The appropriate steps.
Yeah, take the appropriate steps. Is it your job to discipline the abuser? No. That is the job of the law. The church is not a lawgiver. And that's where we're having trouble because Dan Juster wants to refer to the church as a court, wants to refer to the church, the apostles here. They want to be a law-giving body.
And in the context of Christian nationalism, that is terrifying.
Yes, because Dan Juster's belief system is that Israel and its apostles should be the prophetic seat of government of the world.
I didn't know this.
This is Pastor and Trader. Now, I'm not going to challenge his religious belief, but I will say that it becomes problematic when he's trying to exercise governmental authority over congregants that he was called to shepherd, because the call of Jesus for shepherds was, Peter, feed my sheep.
Yeah.
So everything that Jesus describes as pastoral is a caretaking role. He does say, like, can you not judge? Like, why are you taking matters to the courts? But he's talking about, like, literal unfairness. Like, he's talking about, whatever. I don't want to get too far into it because
Yeah.
then I have to write an 8-page essay.
This one was weird. I reread this one a couple times and couldn't totally make sense of it. Authority and decision making on a local level among congregations and ministries that is reflected by a plurality of mutually accountable leaders. I was like, okay. And then they put comma, the senior leader among them. Does that make sense to you?
I actually don't know what they're trying to say.
I don't either. But there's a lot of senior leader language in this. And so it gives me the...
I tend to feel that leadership has to be accountable to the congregation. And the best run churches I have seen, they're transparent to the congregation, but the congregation has a vote and they can say, hey, this is a vote of no confidence for your leadership, because here's where you violated the agreement between, you look at the Bible. God had covenants with his people, and he had to keep his side of it. Now, God actually walked both sides of his covenant with Abraham, which I think is profound. But
Welcome to the Agnostic Bible Hour.
here we are. But I believe in the principles, man. And so I struggle with this idea that, like, okay, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to pick my guy that I like, and then I'm going to pick my other guy that I like. Whereas, being accountable to your congregation who is giving you money and submitting themselves to your instruction is important. Like, they deserve to see the budget. They deserve to see you. You need to answer to them, because you're actually serving them.
Yeah.
And like
If you're
that,
asking for the resources, they deserve the right to be able to see where
Yeah.
those resources are going.
yeah. And if you're asking them to contribute and follow your leadership, and you are basically, if you're wanting to assert your authority and discipline over them, like, there does need to be some form of mutual submission. Otherwise, you're creating an unequal power dynamic that is going to be really dangerous for people in the congregation, because they have no power. They have no way of contesting what's happened. It's just bro culture.
Yeah. The 1.2.5 is where they bring in the idea that was in the PRT, that Independent Council of Presbyters, which to me is a pipe dream. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I just don't see it as being a viable solution, because they are asking people who are not affiliated with their ministries or to serve as like accountability structures, and I just don't see how they facilitate that and how that happens. I think it's like good in concept, but I don't see it playing out. And as far as we know, IHOP KC did not engage in this idea. I don't know if you have thoughts about the IC.
I think my question would be, how are we determining independence? How are we determining their qualifications?
Yeah.
Because, for example, nobody in that,
Are they on your list of good moral standing?
yeah, like nobody in that, so I struggle a little bit like that, with that. Now, in the PRT, I think it's a little bit better. It's more clearly defined with relation to IHOP KC. So it's 5 to 9 individuals who have no current or prior engagement in any capacity within IHOP KC. This group entail, at a minimum, the following types of expertise. And this is why I think this is more viable. Pastoral or ministry leaders who have credibility within survivor communities. That is I believe that's the first.
They give a definition in here of it, and
Let's compare those two. I'd love to compare those two.
Let's see if I can find it.
Let me find the PRTs. I want to make sure I'm looking at the.
Wait till we get into. I think we need to go through the details of how they define pornography and sexual harassment and adultery and all that stuff. It's a whole. I'm trying to imagine Dan Juster in a room sitting there.
All right. So yeah, the very first, and this is what I loved about. And again, I can't tell you how critical I was of the pastoral recommendation team concept. So critical. And the only reason I was willing to entertain it personally was because there was some trust of Rachel Den Hollander. All right. And what is the very first recommendation? This group entail at a minimum the following types of expertise: pastoral or ministry leaders who have credibility within survivor communities and a demonstrated lived experience in understanding abuse, abusive culture, healthy leadership, biblical care for traumatized communities. Okay, so I could probably list.
This definition is very different. I don't know if you can see it here.
No, not yet. I can't. It's too small on my screen. So the first thing I want to point out is that this prioritizes, we are centering victims first. And the reason it's always important is because part of being fair, part of being just, is that you have to the scales are weighted in favor of the institution of the person in power. And everything that Jesus did, if we want to talk about making it biblical, is he evened the scales. That's why you have things like the way that, I mean, even the way he treated lust. He was like, scoop your damn eye out. Like, he put the larger, in almost the entirety, he actually put the entire responsibility on the person with the power. And in that culture, men had all of the power. And he was like, I don't really care if the woman was trying to seduce you. What did you do to keep yourself accountable for your body and your actions? Did you cut off your hands and gouge out your eyes? No, it's your fault. Like, that's pretty powerful. So okay. And man, it's convicting too, because when I think about like yelling at my kids, I'm like, did you muzzle yourself before being a complete asshat to so-and-so? No? Okay. But I don't think, and I do want to be careful to say I that should not get applied to people who are being victimized. And I don't apply that to outcry. It's to when you're in power. All right, so two.
So here's their. Oh, are you still reading your definition?
Oh, they go on. They've got lots of recommendations. So you've got credibility with survivors, community, and demonstrated lived experience and understanding abuse, abusive culture, healthy leadership, biblical care for traumatized communities. I would say I don't even know very many ministers who qualify with that. But I would say, like, I know there's a couple who are on their way there who demonstrate continued humility and have been abused themselves. And I will see them turn towards people in humility and ask for advice and say, hey, how would this hit you? As someone who used to be a survivor, if you read this, I know how it would hit me. I see them constantly reevaluating. I'll give a shout out to some of the guys I've talked to at Remnant Radio. Like Michael Miller, I've had a couple conversations with him, Michael Roundtree, and theologically, we often don't agree. The amount of humility that those two dudes have displayed repeatedly. At one time, we challenged them, like, why don't you have any women speaking to this? And I get a call from Stephen Deere being like, hey, Michael Miller asked me if there was specifically like a woman who's not necessarily a Christian who would have like an outside perspective on impact. And I was like, he's like, would you talk to him? And I was like, this is going to be so ready to be talked down to. I was not talked down to. I was treated as someone who had wisdom and insight, and we related a ton. Totally.
Very refreshing, right?
Right. Yeah. And so I would say, but I wouldn't say I have anyone who has particularly, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who has extensive experience, not anyone with a big name, in understanding abusive culture and care for traumatized communities. It's that care piece where I'm like, that's lived practiced. Yeah. I know they exist. I would trust like a guy like Michael Sullivan to be incredibly sensitive. That's somebody. But then you would need Ron. I would give Ron Cantor. I would, yeah, absolutely. So,
and I'm sure we wouldn't agree on a lot theologically as well. But he has always been so respectful. He is always, even whenever giving pushback with someone like Ron, even getting a little bit, maybe even like be classified a little nasty with pushback, he's always been very gracious.
He is. I have a lot of respect for his wisdom, his continual willingness to learn. I have a ton of respect for him. Yeah, he absolutely. He's somebody that I would trust. But I would say then it continues. That isn't enough. So those are the kinds of pastoral and ministry leaders you need. But then clinical therapists with specialization in abuse, particularly in religious communities. And it says clinical therapist, and that's important because you can have a therapy degree and not be a clinical therapist. You can also be a counselor. That is not a clinical therapist.
Yeah.
They are different. So then individuals with expertise in ministry, health, and legal issues related to abuse prevention and response. Noted, Legal issues related to abuse prevention and response, not institutional defense, not liability. The word liability is not used here, and that's really important. Individuals with experience in victim care, including the administration of any victim funds or restorative efforts, and then individuals with experience in interfacing with abusers with particular skill in assessing repentance and restoration components. So you want somebody who, like, a great example would be someone in law enforcement is sometimes helpful there, but not always. It really depends. But like the Firefly guy,
Jim Holler.
Jim Holler. I didn't love everything about how he conducted his investigation, but he absolutely has, as a forensic interviewer, extensive experience in dealing with abusers and being able to assess whether or not they're lying.
Yeah.
And that's just like
And
one of
he
the
had good-
but like therapists for narcissists,
Yeah.
domestic abuse, you know, and not every domestic abuse therapist is going to be healthy. Sometimes they're not. So it says that, and that would be at a minimum already. We're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's just 5 individuals. So at a minimum, to have one of each of these, you have to have 5.
You ready to hear their definition?
Well, they have more. Then they have no prior connection. It has to include clinical trauma experts. Those are the stronger requirements. They must have survivor credibility. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm reading my own summary at this point. That's what I would say is that it has much stronger requirements. No connection, clinical trauma experts, survivor community credibility, which is the number first listed. So if you are a clinical trauma expert who does not have survivor community credibility, you are off the list, because these are listed in order of importance. If you have victim care expertise in distributing funds, but you don't have survivor credibility, you are off the list. If you are Dr. Jim Wilder and survivors are like, we feel betrayed by him in other communities, you are off the list. And I don't know anything about Jim Wilder.
I don't even know who that is.
I'm just saying, you know, you can be Teresa Sidebotham, who is an alleged abuse expert. You ask anyone in the ACNA what they feel about Teresa Sidebotham, anyone in Ethnos 360, she's a lawyer, and they feel utterly betrayed by her.
Yeah.
And so it's really important. That is the most important piece. Okay, so please let's compare and contrast.
So I say he because I'm assuming Dan's the one with this language. It says the judicial function of elders is evident throughout the New Testament epistles.
They are not
Judicial function.
He says it's evident, but it is nowhere is it said that elders are judicial. That's why he says it's evident, because that is not in the Bible. He is reading that into it. Okay, continue.
The role of elders includes not just teaching and shepherding, but also rendering judgment.
No, it does not.
By the early 2nd century, cities had a council of elders, presbyteries, did I say that right? Led by a head elder or bishop, functioning as the spiritual judiciary for
All right,
local
now
leaders.
let's go back to our definition. I just want to go back, because remember, we're going to see if it's faithful to its own commitments. Okay, let's go back. Man, I scrolled too far. This is
we
so
haven't even
long.
gotten to the fun of it yet, Susan.
But it says biblical standards. 2nd century is not biblical.
Do you hear this composition, though? The body of elders is henceforth referred to as the ICP. Each local congregation or ministry should select this group by whatever method they deem appropriate.
No, they should not. Absolutely not. No. Okay, what? I'm sorry. Like, I can't. How can anyone take this seriously?
Establishing it as an ongoing external body of overseers. These overseers are to be entrusted with genuine authority to hold the senior leader and the elders / board of directors accountable. This group should be composed of seasoned, credible, and respected ministers who are widely recognized for their integrity, spiritual maturity, and impartiality.
How are we defining those things? Again, there's like this broad, you see the broad, oh, like Mike Bickle. I mean, up until 2 years ago.
He would have been on that board.
Yeah.
And that's all they're asking.
Doc Brown.
All of them are
Doc Brown.
Dr. Brown.
He was trying, he has sat over multiple abuse cases and utterly failed. Utterly failed. He restored, well, no, I guess he didn't restore, I can't.
I don't know. Todd Bentley is still doing the ministry circuit.
I know.
All of them have had proximity to him, so I don't know what the F they're doing.
I got a lot of,
Patricia King, I found out today, was the one who platformed him. Didn't know that.
you know who's doing a thing on Patricia King? I think Heaven Bent.
Ooh.
That leftist Marxist.
Let's go, TJ.
So I'd love to see
how that turns out.
Yeah, I'd love to see how Patricia holds up to her own standards, which are pretty sad to begin with.
It goes from the beautiful, like this is making the PRT look like divine. Like
First of all, I have to say I still have so much respect for the PRT. I did not expect to say that. I was really, I was ready to be. I just had nothing to say. Like I got to it and I was like, oh, this is fine. Like this is do I love the idea of a council of presbyters? Not necessarily. I see.
But theirs is a little bit more concrete.
But it's so concrete. Are there still ways that it could go wrong? Yes, but there are ways that anything could go wrong. Look at our justice system. We need our justice system. Look at our policing. We need our policing. All right. I'm not a despite the rumors. I don't want to defund the police. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not. I want just governance. I want just courts, and I know that can get messy. But when I look at with the PRT, that first qualification is so protective. Credibility within survivor communities.
Yeah.
And
I think people don't know how to have a conversation with somebody who's not a Christian anymore, who has been driven out of churches.
And that's a big part of it is if you had and I will say this again, the two reasons that I was willing to entertain the idea of a PRT and not just rip it to shreds, which and other people can disagree, but this is me personally, was that my interactions with Ron, I wonder if I could pull up my first email to Ron because it would be funny. I was not nice. I wasn't like mean, but I was very direct. I was like, I'm not here for you.
Yeah.
And he responded with respect for that. And that was different to me. I was like, all right, bud, like, let's see what you got. Let's see if you actually, here we go. This is my first one. It was last year around this time, actually. That was pretty nice, but I said,
You didn't climb a whitewash tomb?
I didn't. He asked if I was nameless, faceless prophet. He was like, that's why I haven't answered you on Twitter. I just didn't know who you were. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's me.
After your first interaction with him, I reached out to him, and that's whenever he just asked to hear my story and spent just not for any other intention, just to listen, and spent like an hour and a half on a Zoom call with him while Israel was getting bombed.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to him maybe a month or two ago, and we had a longer conversation. And we were talking about a really difficult situation, and one of the things that I noted about him was that he was repeatedly willing to, he talked about his grief over how many people wouldn't stand up to abuse. But it was like not this like offhanded thing. It was like a real deep, like bewildering grief, which I totally get. But then he also was like talking about how people respond when they have experienced abuse they haven't healed from. And that they can be very reactive, and
Yeah.
that there has to be patience for that. But then he would like, it was really interesting because he was like applying it to like leaders can also be leading from that place
Yes. Yeah.
of having experienced deep abuse and then becoming abusive or becoming defensive. Like it was like all about like when you've experienced trauma and how much trauma had shaped the church and church leadership, and then they would lead out of that place of like hyper defensiveness and hyper so that when smaller accusations would come up, he was watching a defensiveness that he was like this, and it harms people when you are in leadership and you have that and you're unhealed. And it was like, this is a lot of awareness.
Well, and that's what happens when you put people at the top of the pyramid too. It's a totally different conversation. But like working in local churches as much as I have, I've had a firsthand seat to see and this is going to sound oddly empathetic, but I've had a firsthand seat to see that the abuse that senior pastors have to deal with from donors, from people whose 5 generations of their family have been there, and they're going to hear
Right.
their opinion and this kind of thing, getting berated in their office and things that they didn't sign up for. They say they signed up to help make people like Jesus. That's what they signed up for, was to help facilitate a community of people who love Jesus, and they're getting chewed out because of loudness of music and carpet color choices, and because seniors weren't, considered in this decision or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, and then on top of that, I think about,
Some of that's valid.
I mean, but like, yeah, and seeing, so I had the opportunity to like talk with some of this is total, like we're on a little aside, but with some of the AG, which if you're not from IHOP KC, that was the group of leaders who were advocating for an investigation. They would not have called themselves
They were
like
not self-named.
advocates.
What were they
Yeah.
called first? The accusing.
They called them the, I can't remember. They got named by IHOP, like the complaint group.
The complaint group. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
And then IHOP renamed them the advocate group. And the leaders were frustrated because they were like, we aren't advocates. We are,
They're survivors themselves.
yeah, like they were survivors themselves. They couldn't possibly advocate for everyone, even though they wanted to, but like, there was genuinely no path for an investigation into IHOP as a whole because, oh my God, the amount that would cost. I had a chance to talk with Rachel Denholler once, and she said that it would have cost between $2 and $6 million
Yeah. People have no idea the vastness of these.
for like a legitimate one. Yeah, she said Grace probably would have been less expensive than Guideposts, because Guideposts had like a more comprehensive way that they would have wanted to do it in terms of like establishing, like they would want to do like a cultural assessment.
Yeah.
Like they would have actually done like a cultural assessment on IHOP. And that's where, when you look at this document here,
It cannot handle that scope.
if you don't understand, when you look at this kingdom accountability thing, the scope of this is so far beyond what the PRT attempts. And it just attempts a process for after a legitimate investigation has taken place. And it is constrained to clergy sexual abuse and misconduct.
Yeah.
And this is attempting every form of misconduct imaginable,
Including heresy.
including heresy. And it is applying it to leaders and members. But what is really interesting about this is it talks about due process. And this is, man, we got to find a way to feed this to AI and summarize some of our main points, because this would be a main one, is that it talks about due process But when it talks about assessing the credibility of survivors or maintaining, a list of members in good standing, how are you determining that there was no due process? And so right now, what I see again is institutional protection. You will not be believed or seen as credible. And they place that credibility piece at the wrong point. You don't assess whether or not allegations are credible ahead of an investigation. You investigate to determine credibility. That is the purpose of an investigation.
And nobody ever talks about the credibility of the leaders. I mean, that's what's laughable to me is that's why I'm like had a smirk on my face the whole time is whenever I was doing some dives into these people earlier. Do you see how many doctors are listed here? And I wonder how many of them are legitimately earned doctoral.
I want to talk about the credibility of Jeremiah. Jeremiah Johnson is not credible. He is in the middle of a lawsuit with his brother over financial misconduct, plagiarism, and stolen prophecy, which I did not know you could litigate, but apparently it's intellectual property.
Intellectual property, it's hilarious. And so here was the other part that like hit me weird was protecting the victims, and then they got to throw this in there, and other innocent parties in the wake of scandals. Whenever reading that, the only thing I can see is Dr. Michael Brown, who I think is a legitimate doctor, speaking of, not a medical doctor, but on the Shots podcast, the Mercy Culture podcast, weeping because of the hell that his wife had been taken through. And it's like, buddy, like if you would have exercised some self-control, it's called the fruit of the spirit. Don't know if you ever heard of it. Like your wife wouldn't be in tears right now.
The thing about Dr. Brown in that situation, and so if you don't know Dr. Michael Brown, he's got a podcast called The Lawn of Fire. He founded the Fire School of Ministry, which was like out of Brownsville revival. It was like
rose to prominence.
split.
He was an evangelist at Brownsville revival.
Yeah, and he was a pretty well respected apologist, Jewish apologist. I mean, he was Jewish. I think he's Messianic, right? Jew, and so very much, especially respected in circles like with Tikkun. Man, I gotta get Ron to say it. Nicole says it for me every time.
Tikkun, I think is.
Tikkun.
That is.
I just feel like I'm like in the South somewhere every time I say it.
Tikkun.
Like Tikkun.
Did you see my dog read Tikkun?
So yeah, when we with Dr. Brown, his whole thing about his wife's name being like his wife having gone through so much. And I have multiple issues with that because I'm like, first of all, the victims are also having their credibility dragged through the mud publicly. Yes. And and even after they called for victims to be silent, no one called for Dr. Brown to be silent. So he was making podcasts that had a much farther reach. He has hundreds of thousands of followers. He has radio broadcasts. He's broadcast by a group called Salem Media Group. So he's
syndicated.
He is actually syndicated. So on his syndicated podcast, he was allowed to make statements disparaging victims. And he was bringing it up to all those people. Those people weren't aware of the claims. So had he kept silent for an investigation, nobody would have known.
And that's what we're seeing with Hope City right now is we're seeing Lisa, who is Mike Bickle's sister, making all these claims from her social media account and trying to discount the narrative that's been publicly like displayed over the past 2 years. But the way that she's doing it though is she decides to drag people like you through the mud by name and blocks you from her Facebook account so that you can't actually see it or interact with it or defend yourself. Like
I'm being accused.
Who processes that?
The wildest accusations too.
Fraudulent coercion.
That I sent women along with Susan Claridge, an author and sister to Tammy.
Have you guys ever even spoke on the phone before?
Susan Claridge? Yeah. No, I've never spoken to her on the phone that I can think of. Early on, I messaged her and was like, oh my gosh, are you the Susan Claridge who wrote
House of Lies?
Not House of Lies, which is like literally like a romance, murder, mystery, intrigue, novel about a cult that's feels very based on IHOP. She claims that she does. I mean, it has the blueprint prophecy. It's got a character.
P3, is that what it was called?
Yeah,
P3.
yeah. It's got all kinds of stuff, and then it's got. I mean, it has like literally word for word parts of the prophetic history of IHOP, which is amazing. And she said it was inspired by several different cults. But yeah, but her sister was obviously a victim of Mike Bickle, so there was some reason for that inspiration.
And so
And
those who had ears to hear were able to hear.
yeah, and so I ask, I'm like, are you that Susan Claridge, and is your sister Tammy? And she's like, yes. And so we had a couple laughs. We talked about a couple things. We at no point plotted to send people into Hope City in the last month to commit with the intent of committing fraudulent coercion. Statute 1431 in the Mariana Islands, which, I apparently that is the statute that Lisa quoted that I'm accused of. And fraudulent coercion
It was a
would be
statue. It was a statue.
threatening. It would be, she wrote statue and not statute.
Yes.
That tracks. But it would be threatening someone with it's threatening someone to force them to commit a crime. So I'm committing a crime, like I am criminally threatening them with something fake to get them to commit a crime. So
There you go.
I'm like, is the crime that by being on social media, made you post all the crazy stuff you posted? Because those were kind of criminal. Really bad. All right. Anyway, moving on. I don't. This is the most. I've been accused of a lot of things, but that's
That was pretty funny.
the weirdest one.
The other thing that's weird on here is the point. Where's it at? Oh, the next one, the 1.2.10, where it talks about an appeals process. I want to know where the Bible talks about appeals processes. Like if we're doing this all off of biblical stuff, I know that's small, but I'm just like, this is the stuff that drives me crazy. This one made my head spin. I had nothing to say about it, but providing recommendations for immediate corrective actions to remedy the moral problems in each particular case by suggesting protective actions and offering a plan of action by the church or ministry in the immediate wake of a crisis, and offering a disciplinary process for the offending leader that may include but are not limited to such things as public repentance, open censure, a plan of restoration, and or temporary permanent removal. It was just a word vomit is what that was. And I have no idea. It's like throwing the other thing at the end of it.
It's like I do appreciate the one thing that the PRT didn't have was the actual authority. The pastoral recommendation team did not have authority to actually enact any of their recommendations. And so the idea here is that they submit to this independent council of presbyters.
Which are ministers, other pastors, not professionals, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah. And that they have the ability to actually do this, to disperse funds, to determine how much, those sorts of things. Yeah. So, okay.
And then this one. And then we're through this first section. Providing options for corrective action that do not include trial on social media, where
Yeah,
leaders are
really.
tried by public opinion, vilified, and condemned without the benefit of due process.
And that is an attack on free speech. There is a reason that people need to be allowed to, it is a lack of transparency to not allow people to contest things on social media. I'm sorry. So whatever they decide, everyone absolutely has to retain the right to say whatever they want, because the leaders are allowed to present whatever they want on social media. They cannot do that. They're not allowing people to bear witness.
This is jumping ahead, but in their first step of Matthew 18, which those who aren't familiar, the first step of Matthew 18 is that you go one-on-one to the person. But what they recommend, though, is doing it in writing. Is that not necessarily facing them, but doing it in writing, which I'm like, that's the quickest way to get a cease and desist right there.
What's hard is
Shut up, that's
I would want. Oh man, it's really hard because I would want a written record of whatever happened or a recording of whatever happened.
And that's why that's why the power has to remain with survivors and victims and deciding what they want to do, because there are survivors who don't want to go public with their story, who don't want to see quote unquote justice, who don't, they want to get on with their lives and live normal lives, or maybe they want some kind of small measure of repair given for the harm that was done to them.
Usually they just want the abuse to not happen to anybody else.
Stop. Right.
Yeah, that is why they come forward. I have not heard a single person say, like almost always, they say, "Oh my gosh, this happened," and then I've heard a lot of victims say, like, no, I don't want to pursue it until they hear another victim.
Yeah.
They will often feel like they were abused, but maybe it was a mistake.
That was my story. My story. I was not somebody who could make decisions for myself at that point. I was a minor, and they were like, "Do you want to press charges?" And I'm like, "Whatever." No, like grace. The guy goes on and offends multiple times. Finally got caught by the law, but I'm still, literally yesterday, somebody DM'd me and told me another story about my abuser that I had not heard of, someone else that he had harmed.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's not that I need anything from that guy. It's just like make him stop. Like, how many people have to get hurt before somebody just stops? Like, institutionalize, do something. Like, what needs to happen?
I did not speak up about publicly really about my abuser by name until he wrote a book.
Yeah.
And then when he wrote a book and said something harmful about me and my mother was when I was like, no. And I wrote him a bad book review, and that was about it. But it's like, it's not, and he was, he's dead now. And so, so there is no worry about continuing abuse, but that is where it's like, there's a lot of talk about, survivors just want money. And I rarely see that that's the case.
Or accusations that, like, people like us are profiting off this by talking about this.
Oh my God. No, we definitely have spent money.
Like, I've spent way more money than I have made. I have made very small, minuscule amounts of money that do not compare to the amount of money that I've made.
Yeah, I know you've spent more than me, and I know I've spent at least.
I've probably spent somewhere in the ballpark of $2,000, probably.
Yeah, because
I probably pocketed less than $100, I think, from doing some YouTube podcasts that had some shared ad revenue splits.
I'd say I'd spent less than that. I've spent like maybe $500. But yeah, it's like.
Yeah. We did the IHOP Casey story stuff, and
yeah.
It's crazy. Should we just pause for now, and maybe we can pick it up later or something? Or
yeah, we can do that. We got to 2.0.
I feel like I'm like I'm dragging now. But we me and Susan are very non-committal because we just never know how we're going to be feeling day to day. Just to be frank, and so we may pop in and do a part 2 on this and keep talking about it, or we may not. This may be the only thing you get.
Yeah.
So, but we hope that you enjoy this. You can follow the Open Spaces page. We have a Facebook group. If you're looking for other people who have survived charismania and are trying to make sense of the world, we'd be more than happy to welcome you into our little Facebook group where we have discussions all the time. I think that's all the housekeeping stuff. Anything you got that you want to say before we take off?
No.
Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll catch you next time.